Awesome, guys. How are we going? Welcome to the Freshly Awoken podcast, number 10. And
10.
what we're calling this one morals and ethics. Sorry, we've
Good.
got different names for it all over the place. Morality, ethics, and morals. It's confusing. But yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So we're gonna go around quickly and do a brief intro of who we've got here. We've got obviously a repeat offender and a newbie. So let's start with a repeat offender. We got Mr. Evets. Do you want to intro yourself, mate?
Sure. So I used to stream. I don't anymore, but I met Fresh while I was doing that, and he asked me if I wanted to do the podcast stuff. So that's how I got involved.
Nice.
And for this one in particular, I went to school specifically for ethics. So that's what I got my degree in. So I'm excited to be able to talk about that in my new house I just. So
Yeah,
that's what
look
I
at
got
this
going
new house hype. That's so good.
Very nice. Sweet. Thank you very much. And obviously the newbie, the newcomer,
Yeah.
the big man, Slodeo himself. Wait, I always get confused.
Yeah, now you can say it and tell
Slodeo.
us actually
It's
how to
Slodeo,
say it.
Whatever. It's all the same.
That's what he always says.
Slodeo Drive. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Where can we find you, etc.?
I stream only from recently on Twitch, just playing a few games and stuff, only because I live out in the sticks and just got decent internet. And
Right.
I found Fresh on Fortnite sniping me out of a plane and then come into his chat and
Wait,
stayed there.
is that how you guys met?
Yeah, that's how we found
No.
you. Yeah.
Really?
And then, probably came in like, got you out of a plane, mate. I was probably like, man, who is this toxic 12-year-old like coming in?
Toxic 12-year-old coming in talking crap. Well, that's cool. And you stream pretty often, right? Like a couple of times a week.
Yeah, a few times a week. I don't know. Whenever I'm playing, I just usually set it on.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Mostly shooters, right?
Yeah, mostly. Anything PvP, really.
Cheeky.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, and obviously we've got Fresh Plays Live, who, I mean, if you've tuned in, you know who he is. But do you want to intro yourself a little bit? Maybe there's newcomers.
Welcome, guys. I'm Fresh Plays Live. Well, actually, I'm the version of Fresh Plays Live who has a really messed up voice because I've been sick for like literally. We cancelled the podcast last week because I had no voice. And it's just coming back now, so excuse me coughing. But other than that, I've had a great week. How about you, Woke? How was you? Oh, you went away this weekend.
Yeah, I went away this weekend. Hello everybody. I'm Mr. Woke, and you can find me at Mr. Woke TV on Twitch and actually on everything, Twitter, Instagram, everything. I stream
everything.
Relatively frequently. I haven't recently actually because I've been like really, really sick. But I'll probably be starting up again this week now that I've like recovered. But yeah, I went down south and I literally got back like half an hour ago from like down on a nice trip away, hit some beaches, hit some surf. But yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Fresh, do you want to take us through
a bit
more into the topic today?
Yes. So I've been really excited to get into this topic, especially with the vets, because like we said, he's studied this stuff, man. He knows this stuff.
about this a lot, man.
Yeah, he talks about it a lot. So we
you always dabble in the subject, like
it's true. Things. In other podcasts, I'm always like, oh guys, I get like, it's like a frustration. Anyway, but I thought we should start off with a bit of a ethical dilemma question, where you put people in a bit of a scenario, and we can all go around as the four of us and say what we do in that scenario. It doesn't necessarily talk too much to your morals, but it kind of does in a little way. Hypotheticals are nice to tease out your intrinsic values, I guess. So
Exactly.
Let's go with I'm picking number 3 just to throw you off in case you're prepared for number 1. All right, so I'll read this. Oh, thank you very much for that sub, whoever that is, but I'm turning that off. Sorry. Your family is vacationing alone on a private stretch of beach with no lifeguard. Your daughter and your niece, who are both 7 years old, are best friends, and they're eager to get in the water. You caution them to wait until the water calms down, but they defy you and sneak in anyway. You soon hear screams of distress and find them both caught in a strong current. We call them rips in WA. I don't know what you guys call them elsewhere. You're the only swimmer strong enough to save them, but you can only save one at a time. Your niece is a very poor swimmer and likely won't make it much longer. Your daughter is a strong swimmer, but only has about 50% chance of holding on long enough for you to come back for her. Who do you save first? Essentially, you're vacationing niece and daughter both struggling, gonna drown. They're 7. Your niece is a weaker swimmer than your daughter. Daughter's got about 50-50 chance of holding on until you get back. Who do you save first? Wokem kicking it to you.
All right, so I just need to break it down in my head for one more second. So basically, you have the choice between saving your daughter. Like the challenge is, would you save your daughter over your niece, or would you save your niece over your daughter, who has a higher chance of survival if you leave her to second?
Seems like that's
Right?
the options.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. So like, obviously, this is the dilemma. The dilemma is that most people actually, when they're in that situation, would probably save their daughter first, because they like, it's like that the relationship is there. It's more, you care more about that person than your niece, obviously, because she's your like direct offspring. And so the dilemma is that most people in that situation would save their daughter first, but then when you think about it logically and you do the math on the situation, you should probably save your niece, right? So where I stand is I'm all about facts and logic. I would go for the niece first, because that like when I have time to think about the situation. But however, I feel like if I know myself in that situation, you don't have the time to like run through those kind of odds, and I think you devolve into like your baser instincts when it comes to these kind of things, and I think I would probably save my daughter. But thinking about the scenario, I like to think that I would save the niece first.
Yeah. All right. Facts and logic. How about you, Slow?
Facts and logic.
We're going to like straight to the core of it. I'd just go for my daughter first.
Hey.
Like if
Maybe
like,
it changes.
I'm not a father, so like
Yeah, exactly. I was saying
adding
no
more to
father.
that.
Yeah, see on if that's all the choice was, but there's on this scenario, there's other variables like,
Ooh.
is there no floatable device nearby that you could give one while you say the other?
He's
there,
thinking outside the bar. All right.
like, and
trying to
like
break
you
the
know what I mean? Like and how and like how if your daughter or whatever is a half decent swimmer and it's like is it a riptide we're talking about, or is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
So you get her to start swimming across it while you're dragging the knees.
Yeah.
Like
You
it
know,
all depends
so
on
you're,
how
like,
confident
around.
you're in it.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought about that as well when I was thinking about it.
But
Obviously,
saying 50-50 chance, like how do you come up with that number?
yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, like, obviously, if you're saving the daughter, if you're saving the niece, the daughter can be swimming across, and then if your daughter is like, oh my god, okay, she's really struggling now, and she's literally about to drown, then you just drop the niece.
You're close enough.
Get on in.
Yeah, just make it over there. You're right.
Yeah, no, 100%. And obviously, this, it comes down to like, I keep coming back to like, what would you actually do in that moment? Because it's all very well when you're presented with the facts and the numbers and stuff like that to be like, well, actually, my daughter has like a 50% chance of holding on longer, but in the moment, there's no there's very few people whose mind would work like that. I think.
Yeah. Calculate it.
Like,
50%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You would devolve into your like base ethics, and so maybe this isn't necessarily about like what the dilemma is, but it's like what are your base ethics in this thing, like, and mine I think would be my daughter first. Yeah, even though I'm not a father, so
Yeah. How about you, Yvette? You're a father to a dog.
One editorial I want to throw in there real quick. I just want to go with the situation as it's presented, because we got into a lot of those discussions when I was studying, and so based on just the information that's presented, I'd say life is the world's harshest teacher, and don't help either of them.
Really? Oh my goodness! I thought he was serious. Oh my goodness!
100%, I'm grabbing my daughter.
I was
grabbing
like,
my daughter.
Yeah.
Like, just when it comes down to it in that situation.
Oh man!
Someone in chat just said, pop a squat and watch him. Just like cheer him on to the sideline. You can do it.
I got my pom poms.
No, see that with such a straight face. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, Oh, okay. This
he is
this has got
educated. He
interesting.
must know.
Well, hello.
So
Yeah.
so for me, if I know, like if I have it in my head already, percent is the chance that she'll survive if I save my niece first and then come back. 50% is not a good enough for me to
No.
let my offspring stay there. So
Yeah.
that's where I come from. And I mean,
Would you?
either
Yeah,
way,
sorry.
like it's a terrible thing to say, but either way, if they're both only 7 years old, you can make them 7 years.
Would you? So, Events, would you agree with me when I was talking about like how like very well when you're presented with like facts and logic, you know, but
Yeah.
like in that situation, it's like this scenario is more talking about like in that moment, you know, that base.
Right.
They want you to think about the moment rather than think about like, oh, there's 50% chance, you know. It's weird. I think it's weirdly worded because I don't know, because I feel like at the base of it, like everybody would go for their daughter.
And it's a question of like idealism versus reality. And I think,
sorry,
like idealism is fun to think about, but when it comes down to it, yeah, you're right. I think pretty much everybody's going to go for their direct bloodline rather than their extended family. But I don't know.
What's interesting is so I worked as a lifeguard for like a year, and I still renew my qualification every year. So when they teach you who you should save first, it is always the person who's a stronger swimmer. You go and you have to get them. Well, if I was working as a lifeguard and I did it the wrong way, I could be liable because you
have to get the stronger swimmer.
Yeah, it never made sense to me, and I was always, like in terms of ethically, but it's more of a practical thing. So this person, like they would say like, maybe this person has like a 90% chance of living. This person has a 10% chance of living. If you're trying to save that 10% and the 90% ends up being in trouble, then you're very much at fault. So you're meant to go for the stronger one first, and then like the non-swimmer. And then a person who's, if someone's unconscious, the funny thing is, so if someone's unconscious, you're meant to like literally just leave them there, take the person who's still swimming, which I was always like, man, I just don't know if I get out and would be able to, lucky I never really had to get to like a position where I was saving one person or another.
That makes sense though, because like if you can save someone who is conscious and fighting for their life or someone who's not conscious and may actually be alive,
and it's also
you definitely want to go for the person who like you can tell is moving.
Definitely. And in that situation, when you're trying to judge, you know, like you don't get like a rundown of all the facts, you know. You don't get to like sit there and take their pulse and be like, well, okay, they've still got a pulse, maybe they're dead, you know. Maybe they're not going to make it. And you definitely that's a I don't know.
And isn't
what about you, Fresh? Have you got a different view on that scenario? We didn't actually.
I mean, other than
you presented it, but
if I was working, I guess I'd have to save my daughter first. But no, I think I guess just knowing what I know now from the training, that I'd probably save the stronger swimmer first, and then you go back. Yeah, it's almost like hedging your bets.
Like logically, isn't it something to do with like the weaker swimmer is more danger to yourself as well?
A little bit of that too.
Panic and all that sort of stuff.
I think they take all that into account.
When I was doing like some life-saving stuff too, it was something to do with that.
Yeah, the craziest one was just like, if I saw someone unconscious, I'd probably be like, crap, get them out. But then you're just like, leave them. They're done for. Save this person.
They're too far gone.
Yeah. You're swimming, you're out. All right.
Yeah, no, 100%. But it does, I don't know. It does present that dilemma, you know, that like, you kind of want to say that you will do kind of the right thing in terms of like the numbers, you know. I don't know. I definitely felt that it was like, I felt like saving my niece was kind of like the right thing to do in that situation when I'm presented with like the logic like that. However, like I don't think I would do it
in the actual situation.
Yeah, you know, and it kind of comes down to like a lot of these things, and I have this kind of like dilemma with a lot of these things where I'm like, I see the right answer, and like in my head, I know. Or not necessarily the right answer, but I see kind of the answer that in my head, I'm like, oh, I think that actually is the right answer. But what I know that I would actually do in that situation is the one that I was like thinking, actually, I don't think that is the right answer, you know? So all of these, I don't know. It's morals, man.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. All right. So should we move on?
Yeah.
I think we got a good answers for all of them.
No,
what do you want to move on to, Woke?
Well, Fresh, I was actually going to put it to you, just because you're the one that, like, I feel like almost every podcast we've done, we've come to some sort of point where you've just been like racking, like almost pulling your hair out, right? So Fresh has this kind of problem where he's like, if we talk about something and we can all kind of agree that, like, this is the right answer, then why can't I go to someone and tell them to fuck off with their ideas and their ideals, because they're obviously wrong, And so I want tell me if I'm wrong, Fresh. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I guess mainly.
But I'm obviously putting words in your mouth a little bit. Obviously,
yeah.
Tell them to fuck
no,
off.
so
But,
yeah,
you're a nicer guy than me. But, like, yeah, I wanted to throw it to you because, like, what is the problem that you're, like, kind of having with that? And I just wanted you to break that down for us a little bit.
So I think the problem is around justifying. Well, I think people should have strong justifications for why they believe what they believe, or why they have a certain moral system. And I think Yvette would probably correct me. I think I'm a hardcore moral realist, where I think that they're a very real, or what should I, like there's lots of different ways we can interpret the world, right? Like essentially infinite ways we can interpret the world, but there should only be one way that we can optimally, like to the best of our ability, to the best situation, the best outcome, interpret the world, and that should be our what we strive for. And I think you can create a lot of meaning for your life in striving for that. So
So just to clarify, so when you say the realist, you're talking about the fact that, like, our morals, there's, like, basically you kind of believe that there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer.
Yeah. So I think that
you're not, and the flip side of that, the other kind of path of thinking is
relativist. Yeah.
Relativist, which is like, it's where you think that morals and ethics are, like, influenced, and they're different, and they're a bit flexible because of different like societal norms, different situations, different individuals. Like, so that's kind of like more relative. Whereas, like, the realist, you believe it's like, so any question or moral dilemma that's presented, there's, like, a right answer and, like, a wrong answer, and it never changes no matter who's in that situation.
No, well,
or am I getting mixed up?
I think I think you're almost there, because I think I'm like a soft realist, maybe, because so I think you can objectively find what's right in a situation, but the situation will change depending on the person. Is that okay, Yvette? Does that make sense? Like,
so it does, but you started out by saying you'd classify yourself as a hard realist.
No.
I think instead of realism, I would go with objective.
Okay.
Just like as a.
Jeez,
as
I didn't know they were
adjective.
different. This is why we got you here, Yvette.
It just draws a more distinct line between, like, this is, like, objective, this is hard fact, as opposed to this is relative to the situation and the people. So I think that to say that you're one or the other even is honestly wrong, to say that you're, like, 100% one or the other. But I think between the two, you definitely do lean the one way as opposed to the other, based on our conversations.
So objective realist was what we're going for Fresh.
Yep, I guess so.
Sure.
That sounds like it. Objectivist.
Yeah.
Like those
and let me get this kind of straight. So your problem is kind of like with the relativistic, like the subjective and relativistic kind of side, or like those two things, like the extreme opposite of what you are, basically, in terms of, and that's where you kind of have your dilemma, because if you kind of take that stance, then you're kind of like, well, yes, we've come to this conclusion in this situation, but in other situations, other people, other and other, like, set of circumstances, this is not necessarily the right answer. And that's where that really bugs you, because it's kind of like, well, I mean, this is the answer, right?
Yeah. Mostly, I think it's kind of born out of a necessity to show that some things are very wrong. So, things like gang rape or like mass genocide should always be objectively wrong, in my opinion. And I can't think that, and that's what I actually wanted to ask. Are these things? Can you have some things that are always wrong and some things that are Or are they mutually exclusive? Things have to be right and wrong, or things have to be.
I would say that most people are somewhere in. It's more of like a spectrum, where you can be the type of person who believes that there are objective truths and morals and stands and laws, and like this is how you should operate in life all, and that's more like Kant, like Immanuel Kant, German philosopher. He believed like there are hard and fast, and then on the other side there's people who, I mean, there's not really anybody who's a hardcore relativist, because at least in the philosophy world, it's basically seen as a self-defeating argument.
Yeah.
Because if you're a relativist, then you have to be okay with anybody having any morals for any reasons.
Yes.
So by that token, I could just shoot you in the face, and you can't tell me I'm wrong. Number one, because you're dead, and number two, because you can't tell me I'm morally wrong because you're a relativist. So, I mean, there's not really a strong argument to go just that way, but there are lots of strong arguments to not just go the other way either. It's just, it depends on how much leeway you're willing to give people, and I think that depends on how open you are to the possibility that you don't understand everything. So a lot of people are really open to that. A lot of people, they know everything and you can't tell them otherwise. I would say they're probably more likely to be more objective than you. Because I think pretty much everybody here is pretty open-minded. So I think that we're able to come up with scenarios where like the hard and fast rule might not actually work. So I think that everybody's kind of on the spectrum, but that's kind of how those people divide themselves up, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I definitely, when I was like reading through like a little bit about like realist and relativist and objective and subjective and all that kind of stuff, I was kind of like, well, I feel like I stand there, but like I can see myself going that way sometimes, and I was really not sure. I was like I feel like it's very hard to like kind of put yourself on that spectrum definitively somewhere, and So
well, and that's the thing, is like you don't stay in one place on it. Like you slide back and forth throughout the course of your life as you learn new things, because then you have new variables to plug into the equations, these decisions. So that's the other fun thing, is it doesn't stay the same.
Yeah, I think on each individual thing you're looking at, you're on a different place on that spectrum.
Yeah,
through outside influences and all that, like something might make you more empathetic on how someone else sees something, because of whatever experiences you've had, and it might be only on that one subject.
I think the same thing could be said for how close it is to you. So like if you're more removed from whatever problem it is, it's easier to be more objective about it. But like you were saying with like the daughter and the niece, there are all these other variables that come into play when it's a close to home. So I think that also, like you were saying, different situations, you might be in different places. I think that's a factor in that too. But definitely, I agree.
Fresh. So you mentioned like I don't want to you actually like okay. So you mentioned
go through it.
What were your examples there? You just threw out like really quickly. You were like gang rape and
mass
genocide, like
okay, all right,
implemented starvation.
Okay, so those kind of things, all right. So how come? So is there any situation where like you can come down on the other side of those issues?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Do you think
so obviously that person that's actually on the other side of it, that's doing these things in their own head, has somehow justified it in some way to their own morals, like twisted it, or through like dehumanization even, or whatever. Like I don't know.
I feel like see, like it's very hard to consider, because like I'm obviously not a gang rapist, for example.
Good to clarify.
I hope it was obvious. But you know, like it's very hard for me to subscribe. Sorry,
Oh,
but
gosh.
like it's very hard for me to like put myself in the shoes of someone, but like I can't. But I can only think of them having to like go outside of their morals to do something like that. To be like, all right, I kind of know this is wrong, and I'm okay with the fact that I'm not justifying it, making it the right thing to do, but I'm just deciding to step outside of like my morals and ethics.
The
You
lesser
know?
of two evils kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe not. Well, yeah,
Well,
or
they
yeah,
probably
Not even
decided,
necessarily.
similar
yeah,
to.
not
Do
necessarily.
you remember we
Sorry,
were
you go.
arguing about the animal stuff, and it was like I've weighed up my
Okay.
enjoyment. So these people are probably like, oh, I actually enjoy raping people more than I care about other people's well-being. So they're willing to
And see,
bend.
that's where relativism comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because yeah, obviously. So in terms of the food kind of thing, I definitely and I to be honest, I still am, even though I've started eating. I've become almost vegan, almost there.
Almost.
Um, that that I still don't really. I'm not the animal rights guy. Like I'm not doing it because I like cruelty to animals. And so I'm still okay. If that was the only argument for it, then I would still be okay eating meat because I enjoy it, even though I know that these animals are getting like tortured or whatever like that. And but also not okay with them getting tortured.
I guess
Wait,
that's how they justify it. It's just like
That's
I.
not,
so
huh?
so
That's not
for
the
example.
ideal, but it's not a deal breaker. Is
Mm.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
what you're
exactly.
going?
So like it's almost like, so like if they were gang rapists, for example, maybe they like, yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I don't consider myself, when I was eating meat, I didn't consider myself stepping outside of my like moral beliefs, because
Mm.
even though I don't like that they're treated that way.
Do you think if you were there, watching it happen, you would feel like that as well?
uh the torture,
Yeah.
I hate it. Like I really, but at the same time, I could eat meat while watching it and not be like disgusted, even though I'm disgusted. I like, because I don't think it's the actual act that disgusts me. I think it's the idea of who those people are as people, to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I mean, as long
Because
as
like
I
because
guess if
like
you.
cruel, like animals get hurt. Well, I mean, I'm okay with killing animals, so
Yeah.
like you've got to slit its throat, you got to kill it, like that
Mm.
is, but and I'm okay with that. But when it comes to like unnecessary pain and torture,
Mm.
like I'm okay with hurting animals, because like when you kill an animal, you've got to hurt it to kill it, basically. Like
Mm.
there's no way to do that pain free.
Mm.
So like, or like completely pain free. So I'm okay with animals getting hurt, but it's when I see the like over hurting of animals, it's that like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting bogged down in this one
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
I'm
We
going a
we,
little
we
bit off
shouldn't
topic,
we
but
shouldn't go too
yeah,
much back into the animal stuff. But I think as long as you
yeah,
justify it, like where your lines are, and you're okay with it, it's because there's probably a difference between being a consistent moral relativist and being an inconsistent across your morals. Does that make sense? Like, if you know something's wrong but you're still doing it, that would mean you're inconsistent across your moral values, and then
okay,
you could still have different relative perspectives on different things, but hold true to them. There could be two different perspectives, I
yeah,
would think.
because I feel like I, in that situation, like I'm consistent with the way that my morals play out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
like,
as long as
yeah.
you are. I mean, I don't think so still, because I think you wouldn't torture dogs and puppies, but
No, because it's not necessarily about me torturing them, right? Because like I would
Mm.
never torture them.
But if you benefited from the torture of dogs,
It's a question of whether or not you're okay with other people doing it, right? Is that
for
what
you, I guess it's.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
yeah,
that's the real question. The real question
Mm.
is not, hey, would
True,
you torture dogs?
true,
All right, because
yeah,
it's
no, I wouldn't torture dogs, but that's not the question here.
true.
Because
So then
I'm not torturing dogs. The
it's a
question
different,
is, am I okay with other people torturing dogs?
yeah. So
okay.
then I
So
would.
so what if I ask the question, are you okay with torturing dogs?
No.
Okay, all right. Well, we got an answer then.
What, are you okay with torturing people?
No.
Are you okay with other people torturing people for your benefit?
No.
Yeah, that's where the
Ooh.
but it doesn't mean that
Starting to get a grey area there. It was
you
a long
might
no.
but you might that
That's
might
more
be
us.
your like point is like as long as I don't see it, it's okay. And I think that's probably where a lot of people lie. So it's not like totally
No, but
out of the realm.
that's not where I stand though, because I've seen it. Like, and yeah, and I've come. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
confusing
Yeah.
myself
Okay.
too now.
Can
Yeah,
we,
yeah, yeah.
Wait, can we shift gears into
Yes.
Yes,
masculinity?
please.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
damn, that's devastating.
Yeah, so,
Man.
Another light topic.
Yeah, right.
So this is an interesting thing that got recently or brought up recently in like the major motion picture industry with Thanos. And I'm sorry, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen the first
Oh
no.
gosh, that's ages ago.
yeah.
Infinity War.
Yeah, it is
not the
Infinity
other
War.
one.
Spoilers for that. It's old.
Hey, it was
It's
called wait, Last Stand? No. Final?
No.
Endgame.
Maybe Infinity
Are you
War.
kidding
is
me?
the one. Yeah.
Endgame.
Okay. So in the first in Infinity War. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yes.
So
Yeah, Infinity
he has decided to rid the universe of like what, half of its population, or like 10% or something.
Half, yeah,
Mhm.
half.
Half.
50.
Okay.
Yep.
So is it any better for him to do it that way and not pick and choose who's dying? Like he just randomly selects, however he's doing it, he randomly selects 50%, and it's the number, not the specific people that he's trying to get rid of. Is that any better than, for example, let's get rid of, I'm just going to say it this way so I can get out of the other side. If let's say let's get rid of all the white people. Like, is that any worse if you're targeting a specific group than if you're just saying, we don't care who it is, we're going to kill 50%?
Yeah, because if you kill 50%, maybe it winds up being all white people that get wiped out. Like it's
Wait,
like
what?
that. That's
It's
like
possible.
if you
It is
because there's a random chance, obviously, at every person. It's like a coin toss.
Yeah.
What if it turns out that just like every white person gets wiped out in that situation?
Or if it's 50-50, let's say every man, right?
Yeah,
that's
like
right.
every man gets
okay.
killed.
Let's move away from the racing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like wait, why are you laughing?
Why
Well,
did you choose that? It was so funny.
That would
It
be
just seems so-
if every man or whatever got killed or whatever. That would be against Thanos's moral thing he was going for. You know what I mean? Because it's supposed to save. I don't know.
Yeah,
what was he doing
assuming
it for?
there
For
was
like
another-
sustainability or something, wasn't he? Or something like that? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that like, so like, isn't that his reasoning behind it flawed because of that? Because it's like him being just like, we're going to wipe out 50% of the population. Yeah.
So is the
Doing
reason
that, like,
sorry, is the reason we're bringing up either if it's all men or all white people, are we saying like, is it better if it was targeted?
Yeah.
Or not?
But anyways, no.
Okay.
And regardless of the group, like not those groups in particular, but if there is a group that's being targeted, is that any worse than if it's just, here's a number, this is how many?
I
we don't
believe
care
it
who
is. I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
Why?
be targeted.
Oh no, that's
I'm
just,
not saying I
that's
disagree.
That's just how I see it. Yeah.
So you're saying
I just believe how Thanos did it or whatever, or was doing it, is on his moral grounds the most ethical way to do it.
because it doesn't rely upon like one person's judgment of whether like they should stay or not.
Yeah, that's right.
but like I feel like it should be targeted in some sense, because like you can't, like, I think it would be unfair if like complete segments of the population just get wiped out, so in that sense I think that it should be targeted. Does that make sense?
But then who gets targeted, Woke? What are you trying to say?
I'm saying, like, man, definitely wipe out all.
Oh, just stop! No.
Gingers, all the bloody gingers. That's how you are.
Oh my gosh, no.
I mean, that's only like
they've got no
1%,
soul, anyways.
so-
It's all right.
we're
like
half the podcast. We're half the
That's
podcast.
right.
Yeah, exactly. Geez, we wouldn't even have a podcast if all the gingers.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, just me and Slow here. Like, well, here we go.
What about? Do you have an answer to that situation, Fresh?
Are we all agreeing that it's wrong to wipe out half the population though?
Oh
Is
yeah.
that- Okay, cool.
I think that's
Okay.
a good.
Yeah,
that's
different
not what I
question.
was trying to say.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's
I
definitely a
think-
different question.
I would like to hope that all of us think that like mass genocide is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like,
okay,
okay,
good,
so
yeah.
Let's hope
so
so.
do we want to get into a little bit of like so how does that get from being like something that why have I got a pen in my hand? I don't know. Jeez. I'm not writing anything down here. Like, oh, I'm in school. How do we get from us being like, okay, we understand the like ethics and morals of this situation, and like in terms of genocide, it being wrong to like kill people and then to like target like specific groups of people in that mass killing, then like how do we get from understanding that's wrong and then like implementing that as like kind of like law, or like because mass genocide is like kind of against like international law these days, right? Like I'm pretty sure.
I'd like to hope so.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know 100% here, but I'm pretty sure like the signatory nations on the United Nations and stuff like that say you can't commit genocide, right?
Yeah.
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 The Geneva Convention is the like what was the result of that happening in World.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with like rape, using the example that we used before. You know, we got to a point where we understand that that's morally and like ethically wrong. So that, and that has been enshrined in our law. You know, so like how do we like when and how is that bridge? Like how is that bridge? Like how do we get there? The connection.
Oh, between our morals and our laws.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question.
Because
as a
for example,
democracy, I suppose, wouldn't they just like vote? I suppose that was how it would go.
Yeah, because
that's
for example, with the whole vegan thing, all right, like I'm personally getting around like starting to come to terms with the fact that I think that people should be eating definitely less meat, but like not even just less meat, but like almost no meat, right? So like how could I potentially, if I wanted to, or like you see vegan activists and stuff and whatever, they're trying to like stop people from eating meat and shaming people for eating meat. How would they go about trying to influence something to like make it move from just a moral situation to like laws?
I don't think our government is meant to legislate depending on morals. It's meant to be more material based. So, for example, almost everyone, if you put it to a vote, would say that cheating on someone or committing adultery is wrong. However, they would never legislate that because material wise, well, the government's not really meant to give us our morals, you know. They just deal with making sure they're able to protect the people who need to be protected. At least as far as I know.
Yeah, but I know, but is it so? There's obviously laws, right? Like, right.
So I think laws are what we collectively agree are the objective moral right.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
So
it's got to reach a tipping.
Yeah, in society. So it's based on like our laws are based on the majority perception of morals and ethics in a society, or like
in that certain society. I suppose that's what it is.
Yeah. So then yeah, okay.
I always assumed it was.
I think if there was like say 2 million Australians or something like in a big outrage or whatever about, I don't know, eating meat and blah 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 blah, they would probably look at it. I believe there would be something that would, you know what I mean? Like if there was,
that's the thing. So
there would have to be like a mass like movement or whatever.
Yeah.
So not necessarily half, but statistically significant.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I don't. Okay, so I don't.
And then I suppose it'd be brought up, put to votes, blah blah blah, gone through the system, and then and if something eventuated from it, something would.
Yeah. So I don't want to keep on harking on about things that we've talked about on other podcasts, but obviously they're issues and topics that I've actually done a little bit more research into. So they're forefront of my mind. So climate change. All right. So definitely a big one in politics and stuff today, and it's on the tip of everyone's tongues in terms of like dilemmas that we need to think about. So like recently there was protests around Australia where I remember someone threw out the stat last, or when we were talking about climate change, but there was like how many millions of people around Australia that showed up to these climate change protests?
It was a lot.
It was a lot. It was millions.
Protest is in like we don't believe that climate change.
No,
No. As in,
like we should do something about
the
it.
government should be acting on this now.
Okay,
and it was. I'm pretty sure. Like I will have to fact check this and look this up. So someone fact check me and look this up. But I'm pretty sure it was on the plus side of 2 million people. You know that, and they were just the people that actually got out and went to the protest to actively participate in the protests around Australia. So at what point does it become that's just including that, not including the people that actually believe in it but didn't go to the protests, the people that are kind of on the fence but leaning towards it but like would never get involved in protests at all, like there's obviously a serious like groundswell movement here, but like we don't see any of that kind of ethical kind of stuff in our government, like really, and reflected in our government policies and stuff like that, which is so strange to me.
So I think
we're getting off topic. I feel like
No,
we're still
fine.
dealing
That's
with like
we're still. So
Right.
I think that Fresh is right in that our morality doesn't come from our laws, but I think that the opposite is true, and that our laws do come from morals and ethics. And like it depends on what the collective feeling is on a given thing at the time, and that's when the decision is made, and then that'll carry until there's some kind of paradigm. But I think what Slow is saying makes a lot of sense too, where it doesn't necessarily have to be like 50% of the people are already on the same page about this thing, and then there's a change because of that. I think it's more if there is a statistically significant group that draws enough attention to it, so like 2 million people, then that does start conversations about it, and not just so like if we're talking about, I'm just going to go back to the veganism thing for a second, just because there are so many different things at play in that. Like
100%.
a lot of people are aware of the animal cruelty part, but they're not aware of the climate change part. They're not aware of like food shortages and like all of these different things that are caused by the meat industry. But if it gets brought up by say 2 million out of, what's the population of Australia, like 40, 50
odd,
25 million.
Yeah. 25.
Oh, okay. So that's like almost 10%.
Yeah.
Right. So I think like in the US we have like 350 or something like that. So like if 35 million people stood up and said, hey, then it might not necessarily lead everybody else to agree with them or even be okay with what they're saying. But the people who haven't spent very much time thinking about that topic might think about it more and make a decision. And that's how we get to half. So there's the people who start it, and then there's the people who bring it to attention because they started it. And then everyone eventually makes a decision once they're aware. I think it's kind of the process, and then it becomes a lot.
Because I feel like that was kind of I sensed a little bit, or like in thinking about it, I felt like Fresh, that was a little bit of where you were kind of like banging your head against a wall, was that like you know something's like the right, like you feel like you've got like a moral that you believe in. How can I like take this further, and how can I start to try to not impose it on other people, but like say it's like the right thing and get them kind of like more on board with it? I felt like that was what you were kind of like having issue with a little bit.
Yeah, I guess just like justify.
I think all you can, in that situation, I think all you can do is just share the information, share the facts, make it more readily available to people.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all you can do, because you can't tell people what to do or anything like that. And I think the biggest difference between, say, your like the animal cruelty thing and climate change is, like, I can go and get a job in a meatworks factory right now, right? So I can see exactly what happens. I can get all the information. I can, put it against my morals and ethics and all that and make a decision on that. Where climate change is, ideally, I think I know what I want, but of I had a bit of a quick look at it. The information, actually understanding the information, literally, I would have to go to university for like 10 years to understand.
Yeah.
It's like a big barrier.
Yeah. Like I can't just go on the internet and go, oh, climate change, Google it and go,
Yeah.
oh, that's wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
we have to kind of trust the authorities on those.
we've literally got to trust the people and our government that they're doing the right thing in this, because they've got the experts that are sending there where the balloons up, checking percentages, doing whatever, and we have just got to trust that our government's doing the right thing, because
I think,
unless morally one of these experts comes out and starts exposing stuff or in that way, that is the only way to that something will happen. You know what I mean? Like a big.
Well,
and it wouldn't even have to be one expert. It'd have to be like a heap of them all together with like a big mutiny, pretty much, on the government. That's what it would have to be.
That's where journalism and the media comes in, and that's where it's their responsibility to find out what's going on and keep an eye on the government for us. And I don't know what the differences there are in terms of US and Australia, but I think generally speaking, that's like the main point of journalism, is to figure out what's going on behind closed doors.
Ideally, that's the main point.
Ideally, that's what they're doing.
I guess ideally that would generate the most profit, and that's what always is the main point with media.
Yeah.
Well, if you go back to like the origins of journalism in the US, that's all I can really speak to. When it came to like news on the radio and news on the TV, initially there was no advertising whatsoever. It was just like, here's an hour of news, and everybody's getting the same news, and that's it. And I think that has both ups and downs that go with it, because you're only getting the source, which is definitely a downside, because the more sources you have, as long as they're legitimate sources, the more different opinions you can get, and you can form your own in a more educated way. So I think more sources, generally speaking, is a good thing. But I think the no ads, this is an hour where we're just going to talk about the news, is also a great thing, because when you bring in advertisement, that's where people start having vested interests in making sure that whatever my news story is that I'm running doesn't upset XYZ company or
because they pay a certain amount of
whatever.
Right.
So I think that in large part, the reason that we've kind of lost track and we just have to kind of trust that our government is doing right by us is because we don't know whether the information that's coming at us is biased or not. And I feel like that's something that kind of got lost in like the 70s or the 80s. That's when ads started being allowed in the news.
I guess the only way you could do that these days without having ads would be to have like a government-funded program, but then that creates its own problems.
PBS or the BBC or whatever, but that all still has its own problems.
So what you really need is a news source that is like crowdfunded, basically. Community funded news source. Because and that just doesn't exist.
I mean, that's essentially what like PBS and NPR and BBC. I think that I don't know how BBC gets its funding, actually. I'm going to step back on that one. But like PBS and NPR, they rely on donations for about 40% of like all of their revenue. So I guess I would qualify that as a crowdsourcing thing, and like try to be as ethical as possible when picking. Like, I'm not going to take money from these people because their company is terrible, as opposed to like, these guys seem on the up and up, so we can take a corporate sponsorship from them, and they always disclose that is the other thing.
So in Australia, your BBC is kind of similar, I think, but in Australia we have ABC, the Australian Broadcasting
System.
Just kidding.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but Australian Broadcasting something, but ABC, and they are funded. They are government funded, but it's through like the taxpayer, basically. So basically the taxpayer, it's like the idea of it is like crowdfunding from the people of the nation. However, the policy around how much funding they get, what percentage of the taxpayers' money goes to that company can be changed by like majority governments. So like when there's like certain governments that have like majorities and they have the power to influence and change laws and stuff like that, then they can go, oh, okay, well, hey, you better like there's that pressure to be like, well, you better support and not speak bad about like the Liberal Party, because otherwise the Liberal Party has the power right now to go, well, actually the ABC is not going to be getting as much funding, you know.
That's
change
actually
the
been
law.
going on a little bit with PBS here, with the Trump administration. A lot of funding got cut because there was just like, I don't know, there was too much stuff that administration didn't think was important. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be this whatever broadcasting corporation, like publicly funded one. It doesn't necessarily have to be that they're doing anything to piss off the party. It can just be that the party in power doesn't see that as a fiscally responsible thing to do with taxpayer money, which I think is the wrong decision. 100%.
No, yeah, 100%. And I feel like
it is a reality. So
yeah,
you feel like what?
I feel like moving to a system where you have like I know we're getting a little bit off track here, but just the way we go here was that like to develop your morals and ethics, and then that follow into law, you need information and you need the correct sources of information.
And the core of it.
Yeah,
the core
and
of
like
journalism was
having
for that.
Yeah, and like having like a locked in amount of money that doesn't fluctuate, that is like enshrined in law, that needs like a referendum, like a public referendum to change, you know, because basically that there's supposed to be not a broadcasting network for the government, it's supposed to be a broadcasting network for the people, you know. Yeah, and so really it shouldn't be that we're voting these people into power, therefore it should be like our direct responsibility to
I think
change it.
I think that would work. Or you could even do it non-governmentally, like have an NGO that is set up specifically to do that, so that the government can't
influence it. Yeah, interesting, very interesting.
But yeah, cool idea.
But when I think of like media and journalism and stuff, like ethically right is not the first thing that comes to my head.
No, definitely not. 100%.
That's not like
definitely can't be trusted to help inform me of my morals and my ethics. I have to go like scouring the internet and scientific papers and stuff like that, trying to find the facts, you know, and that's inaccessible for a lot of people, like you were saying, Slodeo.
Yeah,
I would argue that it's still a good idea to have the media, even though it is still a good idea to have it around, because even if it doesn't present the right information, it gets you thinking about it, and it gets you to the point where you want to go and invest.
Yeah.
So I think that like that legwork is on you. That's your responsibility ethically. But I think it would be a mistake to get rid of the media just because it doesn't always portray information in an unbiased manner and 100% accurately, because it does make you go and investigate more and find out like what's really
exactly. As long as people aren't taking what they're saying as 100% factual.
Yeah.
As long as they're taking it as just a point raised, a information raised, and then, like you said, you go and research it yourself if it's something that you feel you need to look into.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely a problem that we have in society today, is that some people they are unwilling, or they don't know how to go and get the facts and find the facts, so they just see something and they just trust that it's accurate, you know. And then when you are basing your morals and your ethics off of that information, you get people with twisted morals and ethics, you know, that you kind of like, man, how can you think that way? How can that be?
But not necessarily. Their morals and ethics might not be twisted, just the information they've got's been twisted, which lines up with their morals. You know what I mean? But they don't know your side of the story, which might not line up to them same morals.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Like they would make this, if they had all the information, they would make the same decision. Like they would apply their morals in the same way, but they would end up with a different outcome because they had all the information, kind of thing.
Yeah, like someone might get the story to say, got a news story saying, oh, a murderer got taken by the police today and he's put on death row or something, and then you might got a story to say, oh, a man has in self-defense killed someone in his house that broke in or whatever, and he's been taken away and he's put on death row.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like they're the same story, but and even if the two people have the same morals and ethics, the information that they got, you know what I mean? They've come up with a different decision.
Yeah.
Just because they only got the part information.
So is it can we say that like is like information like necessary for coming to like moral and ethical like outcomes, like figuring them out?
I think
unless
finding how
you just
people have
wanna
come
go
to
with
their
your gut
decisions
feeling.
is yeah.
I think
Yeah.
unless you want to just go with your gut feeling all the time, and that's your moral system, you've got to have some information. Otherwise, you don't have anything to rationalize why to or not to do something.
Yeah.
In some
And then
circumstances, like the Thanos one, even you can't have all the information available to know which people to kill if you're going to kill half the people, you know. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So what about if you so you have to have some sort of information to start like forming your morals. Do we have like a moral like do we have an obligation to like to seek after that information if we're deciding to make a judgment call on something? Like is it not okay? Are we allowed to say are we allowed to say to someone, you need to go, you're not allowed to have an opinion on this moral, like take a stance on this until you have sourced the information?
I mean, there's different extents of that, I guess. If people are uneducated, it's hard to have a good conversation. But it's also it's hard to say that you can blame people for being ignorant if they just haven't come across the right information.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not saying blame. I'm saying like so hey, if you want to have like a conversation about this like at all, then you need to go away and like get informed.
Yeah, make an attempt.
I think that's one way to go about it. Or you can, I mean, if they're just not going to listen to you, then that's the way to go about it. But if they're open to listening,
oh, you cut out for a long time there, Vets.
Yeah,
what was that?
sorry,
If people are not going to? No, you're right. You're back.
You're right
It
now.
might have just been the
Okay.
internet. Yeah, sorry.
If people are just not willing to hear what you have to say, they don't have any context for it, and they've made up their mind, then I definitely think it's within your rights to say, no, you need to go back to the books and learn a little bit more about what you're talking about, because a lot of the things you're saying just aren't true. I think that's one way. But if they're open to talking about, I don't think there's anything wrong with informing someone who's less informed on this topic. And then again, that might not be enough for them. And then they'll go and investigate it further. And then again, they're educating themselves more on it, in my opinion. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being that catalyst and saying, hey, here's the information. And if you are curious about it, here's more.
Yeah, because if you're getting into that conversation with someone about some moral or ethical issue in regards to what's going on today, then they obviously, if you're getting into the conversation, they're obviously interested, you know. And I think it would pay to be like, okay, well, like, what reading and what research have you done on this topic before we start getting into it, you know, like, and then like because otherwise otherwise it can be just like about like you're having this conversation and it's just going up against nothing, you know, like they've got no real research backing them up sometimes, and you're kind of like, well, like, what about, like, I mean, have you seen this study, you know, where like, or these thousands of studies, you know, where they say this thing, and they're like, no, you know. And you're
but
like,
I think okay. You've also got to ask them about where they got their information from, and why they see whatever it is in their view, because and then you might have a bit more of an understanding of what information to show them. That lines up with what influenced them to make their decision.
And
I think a lot
also,
of time too. Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry. It also kind of comes down to the fact that it's like, or if I have if I've gone research and I've found this information, it is possible. It is possible that I missed something. You know what I mean? Or like I found certain types of information and then I form my opinions and my ethics and my morals off of that. So then what about and if I just dismiss them and be like, oh, like I've already done my research, maybe they've found something else that I actually need to look at, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think I don't think you're actually forming your morals and ethics off the information. I just think you're just looking at this information and reflecting it to your morals and that. And yeah, the information you've seen and all that, yeah, it might line up with your moral views or whatever. But yeah, like you say, you might not have seen the other side of the story, which doesn't. So, like your morals and ethics, I don't actually change per se. Like the core of them don't change.
Okay, so I feel like
it's just your
muddied
view.
between like opinions.
Yeah.
And morals.
Well, and so I think with that, we're talking about where people derive their reasoning, morals and ethics. So I think it's still within bounds.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons that it's really saying to ask people where they got their information is because it might not even be that they have information that you don't. It might just be that they haven't even really thought about where they got their information.
Exactly.
That could be like some random person on the street that they don't know at all. And you're their best friend, and this person just told them something when they were like 6 and they just still believe it. And if you can present them with new information, if you can get them like, where did I learn that? Then they might realize that it wasn't a great source.
It's also very hard these days because there is so much information out there and everyone has their own like selective bias. As you look at all this information, you filter through and that affirms my point. That affirms my point. Keep going until you got all this stuff that keeps affirming the point that you had before. So it's really hard to get an unbiased opinion, I guess, a lot of the time.
And what Yvette's just brought up there about a close friend or family. See, their opinion. Now, their opinion might be held in a really high regard to someone that has really strong family moral set with them. You know what I mean? So, like what they say might be more heavily weighted, and they might be closed-minded from that. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people in certain societies and stuff where that is the case too.
Yeah,
so it's like all just family orientated stuff that is just more heavily weighted than what they see on the internet.
Yep. All right, Fresh. Do you want to get into some more of the things that you had?
I guess maybe we can do. We just started touching on like family oriented and society. So maybe the last point out there. Where do we get our moral system from, and why do you choose them? So I don't know if we want to go around and say where people think they get their moral, or where do we think most people get their moral system from? How do we decide what's right and wrong?
Yeah. So like, I think that you get your morals from like I think everything and anything that influences you throughout your life. You know, like, and I'm talking like anything. Okay, like it could be something where you've you've read something. It could be you were told off when you were younger by a parent. It could be your friends and how they influenced you and how you acted around them, or they like how your interaction with them went. Actually, okay. So I think it mainly comes through like your human interactions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would anyone else agree with that?
So I think that's one of the sources. I think that there are like I would kind of break it down into 3 categories. So first there your loved ones, and then second there would be authorities in your life, whether that's like professionally or like experts in fields or people who've written books or whatever. Somebody with some legitimate authority, at least as you see it. And then the third one would just be situational information. So things that you run across, then you have to make a decision. and then
Okay,
you can
yep.
base your future decisions on that. But I think that kind of covers where I think that comes from, because like your family is who, generally speaking, your family is who you spend the most time with, especially when you're young, and that's
Yes.
when you're developing a lot of those morals. But then as time goes on, you will kind of fine tune your moral system based on information, so the authority, and then situations that you come across. So
Okay.
that's kind of where I think that comes from.
So, what do you say? Authority and situations.
Family, authority, and situational information.
Yeah. Okay. Fresh. What did you think on that one?
And yeah, I mean, I think what, like when you're younger, it's always heaps of family and people you interact with until you become old enough that you experience more and more, and you have situational, and also do research and get a bit of authority too. I find it interesting that it seems like maybe the younger generations are valuing situational information, I think, more than authority and like traditional ways that we've always done things, if that makes sense. So like their experience shapes their truths rather than having it the other way around, where you know things that are true and then experiencing things through that lens. That makes sense.
Okay, and so you're saying that they're more they're a little bit more fluid, a little bit more accepting of a change of opinions and a change of like their morals and ethics based on like their new experiences and stuff like that, rather than being like really like, well, I grew up this way, so like I learned these values from my family and I'm rigid and I'm not changing. I'm not flexible to change because these are the morals that I had growing up and this is the moral standard that I was set.
And
so
I guess the younger generation's always been more progressive, but it seems like it's even more so now.
Do you think that's a little bit because families are not setting their like moral guidelines as forcefully as they used to?
Probably multifaceted.
I think it's
the
part.
question there.
No, I think it's the bit after. Like, I'll jump in and say what I think.
Goes. Yeah, good.
But right. So I believe you get your very first core morals to go off from your parents saying, "Don't do that. That's bad." You know what I mean? And that's where it starts. And then from that, you have experiences in your life that have consequence and all that, and then you reflect them against them core morals that that you got taught. So through your experiences, they get reflected back, and then they get fine tuned from there. So so I think everyone should get taught, this is right, this is wrong, like the basics, you know what I mean? Don't hurt other people, blah, blah, the very, very basics. And then through life, through consequences of whether it be authority or just through yourself or whatever, that's where it gets reflected, and that's where your morals and ethics progress. Like that's what I personally think. And then and I think that's why you get weirdos and stuff, because of you know what I mean, like because they've been told what's right and wrong, but then they do this, there was no repercussions, or something good happened, and then they go, oh well, that's how that happens, and you know what I mean, and then it progresses from there, like through a series of events might turn someone from being an innocent child or whatever through a full life of series of certain consequences, or having no consequences, or life experiences and blah blah blah. They'll end up being a murderer or something. You know what I mean?
We got to talk about the Joker there. Have you guys seen that movie?
I have seen the Joker.
No, I haven't seen
I haven't.
it.
Just before we move on, Yvette, sorry, you wanted to chime in with something just before, and you look like you wanted to chime in with something there.
We were talking about the younger generation. Part of the reason that so much more of their ethics based on their own experience, like Fresh was saying, I would tend to agree with that. And I think the reason for that is because there's kind of been a breakdown in the quote unquote authority part. When it comes to information, there's so much from so many different sources, and so much of it just is that I think that people who have grown up with the internet have kind of lost faith in a lot of those informational, and they feel like it's up to them to decide for themselves because they can't trust any other information
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that might be part of where that comes from for the younger generation.
They're literally able to get what their parents say and fact check it like within like 20 seconds. So
Right.
Yeah.
it's
But then also he's saying that like that is
When they
true,
fact check.
but then when they fact check, this is kind of like what we were talking about before. When
It's
they try
just
to
an
fact
opinion
check,
that they're fact
they
checking.
can,
Yeah,
they can, they're fact checking someone's opinion and someone's kind of like moral
exactly.
stance against other people's morals and opinions, and also like everyone's biases and all that kind of stuff, like we were talking about before. So then because of that, they've learned to like not only they've learned to kind of like not trust the information that they can get. So they've kind of become a lot more situational, where they go, okay, so like for example, with marriage inequality and like gay rights, instead of being like, well, like for me, like growing up in a Christian, like obviously in the Bible it talks a little bit about homosexuality being like a bad thing. All right, so that was kind of like like where I kind of maybe got influenced a little bit growing up. But then and then if when I went to fact check or like if I was trying to find information on it, all right, quite a lot of the information was going to be like Christians, which has been the basis of quite a lot of Western society, being like homosexuals are bad, and like that kind of thing. And so then I end up going to my situational, where I've interacted with and have in my life not hundreds, but quite a lot of homosexual friends and people that I know, and I know that they're not like bad. You know what I mean? And so then I get my morals on that situation from that, rather than from from the authority or the information that I looked up, and or the way I was reared or the way I was brought up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not necessarily that my parents. Yeah, I don't know. I think once again I get down to the like everybody's like so different. Obviously, like Slodeo was saying before, like some people get their morals like they're taught, but then there's some people that aren't taught that. There's what about someone that doesn't have a mum or dad and goes into the system, and then they're moved around from parents to parents, and they don't get that like core like
I think they do, but they
teachings.
just get no one that they believe or trust in that actually teaches them.
Yeah.
Because from any source as a little kid, someone's going to say you don't punch that person in the face because it's bad to hurt other people.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't necessarily think.
What's that?
So, like, I think there's something to be said for consistency
especially in that.
That's what I'm trying to say. The consistency of it.
Yeah. But and especially
if you
in that
don't have the
stage,
consistency, that's where you stop trust. I think.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you develop the ability to rationalize these things, like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense, and then it goes. Is that kind of where you're saying, Woke? Too?
Yeah. So with the consistency kind of thing, if it's not like, for example, you're at school, you punch someone in the face, you're at school, your teacher says, no, this is bad. Your principal's like, you're getting expelled. There's going to be consequences for this. You get home and your dad's like, good on you for standing up for yourself, son. Or like for example, like and when you don't have like consistency across the board there, it creates like, I don't know, you can go either way there, so I think it's very hard to say like, well, everybody experiences the same thing. I think everybody's experiences widely vary, like depending on who, especially in that growth phase. I mean, in every spectrum, when we're talking about authority information, where you're going for the information, when you're talking about like the growth stage of their life, or like the rearing of them, parenting, let's call it, whatever, like who their parents are, how if they've got a stable parent environment, who's really raising them, maybe like their grandparents, or like, I don't know, maybe they're in and out of the system and they're seeing different people, where and then with consistency, like I think consistency is important in that growth stage, especially.
Oh yeah,
to help you. Yeah, sorry.
But if they're okay, just say use that example. Okay, just say that happened. They come home, and their dad said, "What'd you say? Oh, good for
job.
sticking up for yourself or whatever."
Mm.
Okay, well, that does teach him something about sticking up for himself, blah blah blah. But they've also learned a lesson of from the school and all that about what's right and wrong on that side, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
So I think there's two lessons learned there. Whatever environment they've grown up in, there's still
yes,
but they've still justified it as the parent, if they're consistent, as in sticking up for yourself or whatever, blah 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 blah. They've justified it in that way as sticking up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, 100%.
If they're consistent in putting that point across, well, that's just their mess. Like, you know what I mean? I personally don't see anything wrong with them doing that in their house, because that's how they see it.
What about if you had a household of people that were like, we don't like black people, so good job for punching that black person?
Well, that's a different story, isn't it?
Yeah. But then you'd be like,
that's not okay. This is going back to morals and stuff.
Yeah, this is
morally sticking up for yourself and blah 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 is a different thing to attacking someone else, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, going back to like core morals and stuff, it is bad to go out of your way to do something bad to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and why though? I guess that's the question. Because I mean, if we're saying things are subjective, a lot of people will say, well, what's your justification for saying that it's bad?
Yeah, well, no, that's just my morals. There you go. That's personally
I think
personal morals.
Generally speaking, there are a few things that people generally agree are innate, in that, like, you don't have to be taught that you shouldn't hurt other people, or maybe you learn that experience at an early age, and that's why, especially with animals and stuff, like play fighting with cubs or like puppies or whatever, that's the way that they learn how to interact with each other without causing serious. So I think the same thing happens, like, both physically and with conversation with humans. I just lost my train of thought.
There are a few things that people know are inherently wrong.
Oh, right. Okay. So I think one of those things learn through experience, and like seeing other people get hurt and realizing that if you're the cause of that, it doesn't feel good. I think one of those things that people, generally speaking, innately know is, I don't like the way that I feel when I hurt someone else. So I think that's why things like don't go out of your way to hurt other people is one of those things that most people would just generally accept as a moral truth. Like, you shouldn't do that. Just like all the things that fit into that category, like don't rape people, don't kill people, don't steal things from people. Like, all of those things are going out of your way for someone. And I think that at the core of it is what makes it bad. And there are other things that make it more or less bad. But
that is the core of it.
I think is that's what makes
it.
Why do you think we decided? Sorry, why do you think we've decided those things in particular? Why do you think it's a societal?
I think that's more of an evolutionary
thing
as
well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think it's also to do with the common experiences that almost every human being, I think, would experience in some way, like growing up. You know, like whether it's like through, as you're growing up, learning about like laws and stuff like that, learning about what like you were saying, being in a situation where someone else hurts you, and how it feels when that happens to you, while you're growing up, when you hurt somebody else, and seeing their reaction to you hurting them, and that kind of thing, the consequences. And I feel like these are things that quite a lot of, like, almost every human being would experience growing up. So I don't think it's innate, like from birth. You know, I don't think we're born and we just like inherently have encoded into us these like moral truths. I think that there's shared experience. And if you were, for example, if you were to have a child, for example, and you raise that child where every day that child was encouraged to hurt people, like punch someone in the face, all right, and they were never given any feedback on punching someone in the face, except for like saying like, hey, punch this person in the face, this is how you do it. They never saw that person's reaction when they were punched in the face. They never heard like the groans or whatever like that, and there was no negative consequences. They never heard about from outside external influences that it was a bad thing to do that. I think that person, when given the situation, hey, would you punch this person in the face, would say, yeah, I'll punch that person in the face, right? You know, so it's I think it's all from experiences.
Yeah, but when that person does do that and they do get that feedback, I reckon they would have a mental breakdown because it doesn't line up with what they're being taught and goes back to their human nature or whatever. It would raise some issues. I would near bet on.
Yeah, I actually probably agree with you there. Like as soon as you do it, and then that person's like crying and moaning and making horrible sounds.
Yeah, you've done something. You've had the consequence.
Yeah, and you see like the blood and the pain, basically. You would be like, wait, hang on a second, what's going on here?
Yeah,
but if you get feedback from the person who's telling you to do it, and they tell you, "Good job, that was the right thing to do," then that adds other feedback, and you might come up to a different conclusion.
Yes, exactly right.
So
but
I think, So I think, but and what I'm saying, and there's I think there's a core kind of experience, human experience that most humans go through during their like development phase that are shared experiences with almost every human being that has ever been grown up, kind of thing, that helps us to have these that helps to instill these moral truths in us. Is what I'm kind of getting at with the whole like moral truth kind of thing.
I think that's fair.
That would.
Do you disagree, Fresh? You sound like you disagree.
Yeah, I guess, but I see a lot of places in society where people are very willing to exploit other people for their own personal gain. Like really common. I'd say
personal gain is a different feedback you're getting though.
Yes, but if we're saying there's intrinsic wrongs that have been taught to us either through society or like we shouldn't be okay with hurting people because of these shared experiences, it seems like the majority of the population are like, okay, yep, but I'll bend that if I'm gaining from this.
That's why you can't take. That's why it has to be a majority and not a person that's getting the positive thing out of it.
Okay.
But do you think the majority of people? Because I feel like if there wasn't laws in the world, I don't know. Maybe it seems like maybe I'm pessimistic, but I don't have much expectations of people to continue. I feel like you would. Well, we had slavery for so long.
That's why there's individuals. That's why. That I'm saying. That's why there's individuals. Everyone as an individual is different, but that's why we've got majorities and the laws and all that for it to keep everyone ethically on the same level because everyone's different.
Yeah. So Slodeo, you were saying like the moral truths are kind of like what the majority like kind of feels, right? Or like the majority of people would say that they in their experiences growing up have noticed and said like, hey, look, hurting someone else is bad.
I think everyone reflects everything against the moral truths, and then through their experiences and that, then they turn out however they turn out, and that's why you can't, as an individual, like someone as an individual, can't make the decisions for the laws and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So I think if I can jump in real quick, I think. In terms of the like whether it's learned or intrinsic, to have those base values of, for example, people like don't go out of your way to hurt. I feel like either what you're saying or the evolutionary aspect, either one can be good because evolutionarily, I guess we've grown to a point where we're able to have these experiences and learn from. But I think even deeper than that, generally speaking, people know that it's wrong to go out of their way to hurt other people, and I think that is a self-preservation thing of the species. Because if you just go around attacking other humans constantly, then your species is probably not going to make it.
I think people are born with like
that's part of where it comes
empathy
from
or something. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But
part of it is.
But then they have to make the decision once they've get to that rational part of does the negative feedback of breaking these rules in my head that I know are outweigh the positive gain from like whatever, if like for example exploiting people, that's hurting them, but you get that stuff. So are you morally conscious of the fact of making this decision to hurt people? Are you doing that calculation, or are you just saying I get stuff and then just dropping the rest?
So is it like our laws are born out
they're
of...
the people that go to prison?
Yeah.
So is it
I
like
think
saying
that's
then
really
our
logical.
laws are like born out of like a like a, would you say like an egoistic point of view where you go, if this is the society I want to build, if I don't want this to happen to me, then this is what society should be like, in a way.
I think a lot of it, yes, not all of it though. I don't think that necessarily boils down to what specifically or not. I think some of it is just this just makes sense and it's good for everybody, as opposed to I want to stop this bad. So if that makes sense. So I think maybe for the bad things, like the preventative laws, like you're not allowed to kill people, I think that makes sense in terms of like I don't want this to happen to me, so we shouldn't let anybody do it to anybody. But like if we were talking about implementing and everybody has, then people might say, okay, I'm okay with that because it benefits everyone. And it's not just because it benefits you directly or like prevents something bad from happening to you directly. So I think there's the two different kinds.
Yeah, it does seem like
There might
they
be
also
others, I don't
err
know.
on the side of like it prevents people being exploited.
Yeah, and
Like
Yeah.
and it's good to have something done because not because it benefits someone, because neutral people think it's right as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
But and that's why we got a democracy, I suppose, or a group or whatever that
People
makes
that
the laws.
share
Yeah,
like morals and
yeah.
ethics.
So there's people that are obviously swayed either way because of their own personal gains or whatever, and then there's all the neutral people, which you would assume would be a majority. Or if a lot of people, like if the majority gain out of something, well, then that goes through as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, that's I mean, that's kind of I think
that's
how
kind
I
of the
get
moral
my
dilemma there.
moral system is like if the majority of people are gaining happiness
Kind
or
of
like well-being,
imperfect utilitarianism.
then yeah, a bit of utilitarian. But yeah, I mean, then yeah, I guess like most of life has got to be about people, right? So if the majority of people are benefiting from the situation, that's overall a good thing.
Yeah, but then what do you say if like there's like with genocide, there's like white people who are the majority and they want to kill all the black people because and the white people are benefiting from that. You know,
Yeah,
like
well, obviously you got to look at what the consequences are.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, it's a
Like
it's a way up
if it
of...
goes back to the core of like people are going to die if it goes through, but it's going to benefit most people. Well, then it goes back to the core morals of everyone, and yeah, you know what I mean.
And there's got to be a way up of the bad with the good. So like maybe you'd say, you have to look at each individual situation. But if you're killing 10 people and 10 people are benefiting, you could argue that objectively that those 10 people dying is worse than those people benefiting.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Like,
Okay,
and you could
so I have a
also
question
argue
and we
that...
can.
What's that?
yeah.
Well, I have a question. We can throw it out the window, but
No, do it. Let's do it.
I am not advocating for this in any way.
Yeah.
But
Guys, he's
Okay.
advocating for it.
Here we go. Clip it.
if let's say hypothetically, the world was 70% one race, and that race was the dominant race in terms of not only population size, power, and control, and racism was a problem in the world. Would it be better to kill off the other 30% and just get rid of racism?
Question.
And I want to jump in real quick because I posed a question and say I would argue that it is still wrong to kill everyone else because that again will detract from the possibility of the species continuing because you're taking away and variation is what keeps species alive.
But then you have to say that
at
it's
a
morally
very base level. Like
You're
also
saying
it's
it's
wrong to kill,
but how did you come to the conclusion that it's morally virtuous to continue the human race? I guess that's a
okay, that's another question.
Yeah.
All right, okay, hang on a second.
You're opening up a tin of worms here.
Before we jump into that one, how about I just got back from the long drive down south, and I really need to go to the bathroom.
Take a quick
avail
break.
myself of the facilities.
Oh, do you guys want to have a break?
Yeah. How about we just think about that for 2 seconds, and while we're on break, and leave it with everybody. What was the question again? Let's hit me with it one more time.
If 70%, yeah, you go.
If 70% of the world was one race, and there were horrible problems with racism, and it was causing all kinds of problems for everybody, would it be better to just get rid of everybody else so there's only the one race left to get rid of racism, or would it be better to allow the whatever racist atrocities to continue?
All right, 2-minute pee break while we think about it.
All right.
Be right back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we're back, guys. We've had the pee break. Yvette's had his headset on while he peed, so we got to hear him pee. But he also
Peeing and
asked
smoking
a
at the
really
same
nice
time.
at the same time. But he asked a really nice question. Would it be morally virtuous to kill 30% of the population if 70% of the population just couldn't deal with, like, there was just so much racial animosity that it was never going to get better? Is it going to be better to kill that 30% or just try and work it out? What do you reckon, Slow?
Okay. As I said in the little break thing, I think it goes back to the human rights, which was a laws and that made while everyone is in a neutral position. So, like, I don't think decisions should be made like that. While 70% of the people think, yeah, let's get rid of them people.
Okay.
That's I think that's why
You
laws
come
and
to that
stuff like
dilemma.
that. Yeah, laws and stuff, laws and stuff like that are made at a time when everyone's in a neutral position as possible.
Yeah.
So then,
Right.
when a situation like that does come up, well, then 30% of people aren't going to get killed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And obviously, Fresh's answer was, why does the human race need to continue at all? Just kill all.
That wasn't my
100%.
answer.
Kill the full 100%.
Wait, that will also
another
kill
question. Sorry,
that will also
A whole
kill the
different
racism. So
that would also kill it.
same answer.
True.
Yeah, I think that it's I liked what Yvette said when he was like variety is like, through variety is how we kind of like evolve, I guess, through the tried and true method of being like, okay, so there's lots of varieties and like, oh no, but isn't it kind of like one of those things where it's like tried and true method, like one comes out on top and ends up surviving,
Not necessarily.
Okay.
One might become more dominant, but that doesn't mean that the recessive part goes away. It just might
right.
it might be more dormant.
Yeah, and it's surviving in a different way, and in a change later on, that might be something that's needed.
Right.
Okay.
So perfect examples, like we don't have the bananas that we used to have like 50 years ago because that was one species of bananas that got really, really wide. A plague came and basically killed all of those plants. So we don't have those bananas anymore. We have different bananas. So like when you get candy that's banana flavored, that's the flavor that bananas used to actually have when you buy a banana in the store. It's obviously not true anymore, and that's
yeah. I was looking at that the other day. Very interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay.
We might,
okay,
and
cool.
also like the bananas we have now, they might get wiped out too, and then we'll be stuffed. We got no more bananas.
That's true.
No more bananas.
No bananas.
A world without bananas is not a world that.
Yeah,
where do you morally stand on that issue?
That would be bananas.
We're done. That would just be bananas.
Yeah, I'm a dad. I'm a dad. It's all right. I can make them jokes.
Nice.
I think we wanted to move really quickly to our last topic before some chat questions, which we've got. Oh, we got heaps now. Okay, good.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
First, okay, let's go to this topic. So, Cry Vengeance was meant to be here, and he had to get called away for emergency, so he's not, unfortunately. We hope he's doing all right. But he asked, do we have free will, and does this change the way we see morality? I guess, and I have also looked into this a little bit, and the argument for like hardcore determinism or hard determinism, I think you'd say, is almost impossible to refute, other than basically just saying it feels a lot like we can do whatever the hell we want, right? So
it's can you clarify that just a little bit more? Sorry.
So like a deterministic way of looking at the world would be like we're set in motion basically each and if you reduce it all the way down to physics and also like individual choices and whatever, there's so much like behind, like if you kick a ball, it's going to continue on in this direction until it gets affected in this way. That those rules also apply for people, except that people would put in there the clause like we are also individual agents over our bodies and our minds. So it feels like we're.
So I definitely believe in free will because, and it comes down to like the only way you can think about this is from the personal perspective, right? Because I'm not in anyone else. Maybe you guys are all robots, who have no free will. There's no way for me to know that for certain. So the only way for me to talk about this is from my own perspective. But I have I've changed my mind several times on a lot of topics where I believe one thing, and then I've found out information and I've changed my mind, and then I've found out more information and I've changed my mind. And so because of that, snip snappiness of myself, that's kind of like why I believe that I have free will.
I would almost say that's an argument against free will.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is, when things come and change your mind, when you get new information, then things are coming and changing your mind, which means that is more of a deterministic.
So you're like a slave to that information, that new information.
Not necessarily changing. That's the thing. Like sometimes I read information and I don't change my mind.
Why?
Because
in a situation like that,
can
you think of an example?
Like, so all right, so for example,
we can talk about veganism.
Yeah, I know, or genocide.
Why, you changed your mind on genocide?
No. Sorry, I was just because they're the things I always talk about. Climate change.
Well, you learn about this great guy called Hitler.
But why does it come down to why I changed my mind and not that I changed my mind?
Because I would
someone else or something else didn't change my mind for me. I decided to change my mind.
Yeah, but I would argue that did change your mind.
It's very reductionist in nature. You have to look at each individual thing as let's say I was deciding to eat dinner today, and I've got all the options in the world, right? But really, I don't, because I am a vegetarian, so that narrows my options already. I've got like there's heaps of different what would you call it, influences that mean I've got a certain way in which I'm going to choose what happens. That would be a determinist.
No, yeah, but but to get to to the way that you got all of those things was by choosing them. Right.
I know it feels very much like
because and I think the thing is, you can be influenced by these things, all right, but then at the end of the day you have to do one thing or another thing.
So
it's in the action. I feel like the free will is in the action, right?
Would you say consciousness is the driver of free will because you are consciously, then you do have free will? Is that what you're saying?
No. I think I'm leaning more towards kind of what I was getting at there was I'm just kind of thinking this through a little bit as I go, but it's in what you what you end up doing in the end. So it's all very well if you're just trying to run it around in circles in your head and trying to think about do I have free will, and I'm being influenced by these things and all this kind of stuff. But then when you make the action to not eat vegan and it actually turns into something that you've done, I feel like that's when it becomes that you've actually acted in of free will.
Yeah, well, it most certainly feels that way, but
it depends what you see free will is at an extreme case, out of free will, I just don't want to eat ever again. You know what I mean? I just don't want to. But is that going to happen?
Probably not.
Exactly. Just because I don't want to eat anymore, I'm going to be that hungry that I will want to eat it. I don't know.
It depends on whether or not your desire to survive.
Yeah.
To not eat, I guess.
Yeah. It comes back to, is it morally virtuous to
so the argument could go
well, I think that
the argument can go against free will on every single
Hmm.
thing that you do. That you're a slave to your experiences. What I don't know. It's very.
I
It's a bad one
feel
to
like
talk about.
I don't know. I feel like I'm not a slave to my experiences. I don't know. I don't know why, but I like I and once again I keep on coming back to the like snappiness of myself, you know, and the fact that like man, I can experience so many things, but like in any given moment, it's kind of like okay. So right now with like the whole vegan thing, all right, I'm still even though I know all the facts and like um I really enjoy meat. I still really enjoy meat, but like I don't really care about animal rights. But I do like I dislike that they're mistreated, and so I have all these like really conflicting views. But then when it comes down to it in the moment, I have to act on whether or not I eat meat or not, or animal products or not. And like it, like the fact that I like the other day I said to someone, hey, like, oh, you're getting a coffee, get me a flat white. And I forgot that I was trying to be vegan, you know. And so they bought me a flat white, and I was drinking it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is milk in it. And then I was like, well, you've gotten me the coffee, like I'm not just going to throw it out, and I need the coffee, so I drank it, you know. And so in that sense, I wasn't a slave to my influences, because my influences were that I want to be vegan. I've read everything. I'm trying to be vegan. However, when I chose in that moment to not be a vegan because I chose to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
you could,
that's probably the best example you've used yet, right?
okay, all right, cool.
That was a good one.
I don't.
Yeah, no, it was.
You
It
could
was
kind of
actually
like put. You could think of it as like a giant equation, and I'm also the same. Like I don't think I'm not like a hard determinist. I feel like you have a giant equation for why you chose to drink that coffee, and your friend didn't know you were a vegetarian. That goes a vegan, so that goes into it, and you are a vegan, so maybe I don't know where you're drinking, whatever. Anyway, there's all these different variables that go into the equation, and then what comes out at the end is what ends up happening, right? But I think that you have the little clause in there in a way where we are agents. We have our own mind, and that I guess determinists would argue that our mind, it can be even reduced down to experience and all of these variables that go into the equation. But it's for like I think at the very least we're a lot less free than we think we are. So this is a big reason why I don't have huge expectations of people who come out of like quite a terrible home life, or like a if they're born into a really bad situation or whatever. It's
you're seeing firsthand the youth.
yeah,
that's
that too, and like and like a lot of people are like, well, you know, just go get a bloody job, you know. But like it's everything's not as free. Everyone's way more nuanced than we think it is. I think everything's way more set in motion than we think.
Yeah, like yeah, and that's definitely the case, because like I definitely agree that we have all these influences, outside influences, all the experiences that have like kind of shaped us, but I feel like they shape us through us making free will decisions about them, you know. Because and it's kind of like, so you're presented with the information, something that that is influencing you, right? But then you have to decide in what like you decide in what way it influences you, you know. And like
so you're saying
how you're going to act on it, you know.
There's a tunnel here with like a little buffer around it, and so your free will is you can go into that buffer, but you can't go outside of that. I think that's what the consensus of free will is, that even skeptics or whatever, that you still got to go in this same direction. And you can you can stray little tiny bits.
So like a free will, let's call it a free will 180 is impossible.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you could say that it'd have to have a certain, like a very small set of circumstances that would happen.
Yeah, a lot of stuff would have to line up, and
it's kind of like what you're saying is like I'm influenced in such a way by so many things to eat food, you know, because of my survival instinct, and all this kind of stuff. So to do a complete 180, a free will 180, and be like, I am never going to eat food ever again. It's like impossible. And
it's not actually impossible, but it is to a certain
very unlikely.
Yeah.
All right, so if I can go back one more time to maybe another determinist argument that would sway you is when we were talking about where you was from.
Yes.
I think we generally agreed that initially you get them from your family, and then after that you get them from situations that you run across and things that right? Okay, so would you agree that your initial morals are a result of your own? They are more imposed on you by your parents and your family or whoever's raising. Or would you say
that you still have to decide, like you still have to choose with your free will to follow that moral or not? Okay, I feel like they might be a stronger influence. Yeah. However, I think at the end of the day, because like you've got like, for example, someone that's like a sociopath or whatever, or someone that like can't like feel empathy towards other people. If they're told, um, I suppose that's harder because then it's like, well, they're a sociopath. But then isn't that sociopath who they are? So that when they make
that's
ignore what
free
I just
will,
said.
isn't it?
So like they're that them being a sociopath, take that out of the equation completely, because like that. So, but if they're that kind of person that can't feel empathy, then they, even though they're getting this really strong influence from their parents saying, like, or like from someone being like, ouch, like that really hurt, like you really hurt me by doing that, they don't feel any of that. They can't feel that. So then that influence, what am I trying to say?
That influence doesn't exist for them because it's not a factor and they still are making that decision. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like they're still, yeah. Like, I don't know. I feel like you're presented with influences. Some of them are stronger than others. If you're a really weak-willed person, it's kind of like social pressure, or like not bullying, like peer pressure, like the influence is strong, but like you still decide, like it doesn't, not everybody, when they're put in a situation where they're like their friends are smoking weed or whatever, go and they're like, hey, like we're passing this around the circle, and then it comes to you, not every single person goes, cool, pass it on to the next person.
That was a good depiction.
Like, yeah, like okay,
Someone better clip that.
You know what I mean? I'm tripping over myself here, but like I feel like the trying to argue that free will doesn't exist is like is impossible.
Well, it just feels very much like we're
make the argument about it. I don't know, like how can someone who makes a decision, how can you as a human being who makes decisions and changes their mind and does all these things, how can you possibly take yourself outside of the fact that you have free will? Like it's kind of like one of those. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, I don't know about God.
You could go back as far as you want and go, oh, you only have a certain amount of free will because you're a human.
Yeah, it's totally reductionist. You have to keep going down and down, and it's probably, maybe we should do another podcast on it because it can be
free will.
And the worst thing is you got to define what is free will and the level that you're talking about. Like 100% free will obviously doesn't exist because you were born as woke.
I guess that's another thing. It's very hard to say. Those
like,
also
I
seem
choose to be a dog.
They
Yeah,
seem
that's
mutually
right.
exclusive as well. Being
Oh, some
like
people-
determinants of
can
their
I
free will.
can I choose to be a dog?
Haven't you seen on the internet work? You probably can
Yeah,
if you want.
yeah, I am a
Oh
dog.
my gosh. All right, we should get to some chat questions while we. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Before we get
watch
crazy.
out for a dude called Wokey runs over dogs.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't like dogs. Yeah.
Sorry,
Slow,
Fresh,
got him. Got him.
Sorry, Fresh.
Okay. We got a few chat questions before we wrap up. Curiosity has asked, number one, would you kill one person to save 5 people? Just a flat out question like that.
Okay.
So let's just go around. Yeah, let's just go yes or no for this one. So Woke, you go first.
Yes.
Yep, slow.
In a situation, yes. In a situation, no. I know it's hard to like. If
Cop
this
out.
person was directly going to kill 5 people, I would kill him.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's. But if
Mr.
it's
yeah.
a different way, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Events?
I feel the same way about it as Slow. My initial response is no. I would not kill the one person people, unless I've got more information that changes my mind.
Yep.
See,
Oh.
I'm
the same.
I'm the opposite. I think in every situation, choose to save.
Yeah, I'll go yes. Almost every situation too.
Oh,
Curiosity also asked, number
That's
2. I was watching an anime called Psycho Pass, where the police kept the citizens
yeah.
under control by using machines to test their mental state. If they were going too crazy, they would be arrested, even if they did nothing wrong. What do you think of this? Is this okay?
That's
Oh,
like
this
that's a
this
big
is-
argument of intention.
Yeah, it's like Minority Report. Have you guys seen that?
And
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, explain
Well,
that
and that's-
one more time. Sorry.
So basically the question is, if someone's intention, so are we actually, I was watching a video about this on Streamwork and you were like something about the situation. So do we judge people as morally virtuous or abhorrent based on their intention or based on the act? So if someone is going to kill someone but they don't get to do it, is that wrong? If someone accidentally kills someone without intending to do it, is that wrong? Or is either of those better than the other one? What do you reckon? Is that the right way to frame that?
This is actually an argument about determinism, free will. I think.
Yeah.
Because if you are arresting someone like this just sounds a lot like men, where like people get arrested before they carry out the act.
Yep.
And I think if that happens, then, and if you're okay with that, then that makes you a determinist. Because what you're saying at that point is that person does not have the free will to not carry out the action because they've already got it in their head that they're going to. But like, it's impossible for them to say at the last second, you know what, maybe this isn't the best idea, I'll reason maybe. So I think it's interesting how that kind of ties back into the conversation that we were just.
Yeah, I know, totally. Didn't even see that coming.
And I'm not okay with it, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that until once again, this comes down to kind of what I was saying about actions. Like your free will is put in place by your actions, right? So like you until you actually kill somebody, it's all just you're figuring things out in your head, you know. And I definitely think that if you start policing based on what people are trying to like sort out in their head, then like that is like
it's a pretty crazy area to go.
You got to go. Yeah, but you got to go to a point like, let's say someone's got a gun pointed to someone's head, and the police are there saying, "Put the gun down."
Yes, but
and then he doesn't put the gun down, and then they shoot him. They go, you can't argue the point that he might have decided not to shoot.
No. But in that situation, they've already decided to act in some way. They haven't murdered someone. So when you arrest that person, they would not be charged with murder.
Yeah,
but attempted murder.
Yes,
I actually still don't think they'll be. They wouldn't be charged with attempted murder.
In the U.S., they would.
Really?
Yeah. What do you mean? Yeah. If they got
I think attempted murder would be once you fire the gun.
No, I think that
if you miss,
I'm pretty sure if they've got a plan, if you've got a plan to murder someone and you've followed it through to that point, I'm pretty sure you get charged with second degree. Or what was it? Second degree attempted murder.
Yeah, no, but then how do you got to be able to prove that plan? Like, sorry, we're getting into of the situation.
So for that, you've got to be able to prove intent and motive. And at that point,
Yeah. So they're guilty of something, is what I was getting at. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is that so? And they've already acted in some way.
Yeah.
It'd be like terrorism, for example. When you go online and you start researching bombs, all right, how to create a bomb, you've already started to act. You're not guilty yet of blowing people up.
Nah, see, that's where I don't reckon the line's drawn there yet.
No, I
might
think
just
so.
wanna know how to.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you're guilty of terrorism if you go online and you bomb, but you've already started to act in some way, and you could be like you've started down the path. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you're guilty of terrorism at that point, but every next action that you take towards the goal gets you further and further, and you can get charged with more and more. You know what I mean? Wait,
It's harder to argue.
But it's about actions. It's not about thoughts. All right. So like you can think about blowing someone up.
Physical evidence.
And you can really, really want to blow someone up. but until you start making actions to make that goal a reality, that thought a reality, you have not,
like, for example, learning how to make a bomb, getting the material, putting it together.
Materials. Yeah. You know, like if you're arrested with bombs and plans to execute a bomb thing in your house, you could be charged with terrorism. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like it's about actions. You know? And that's where I got into that whole free will thing. Is that like free will is about how you put your thoughts into action.
I think I was actually saying that on the last podcast, that it's impossible to actually tell exactly what someone's thinking, right? You can't. If we could, then we would be able to charge them for that, because then you'd be able to tell exactly what's going on.
I think
we have to inductively reason. We have to use all of the different things, their actions, everything available to us, all of their past history to say this is what's going on and this is their intent.
But you can't say that. You can't say that in that situation where you can know their thoughts because of the way that we work, humans work.
Yeah.
You can't say that thought is action.
No, that's right. So that's why they use everything. So like if they didn't go through with the murder, but all of their actions are leading up to it, and then you'd be able to also inductively reason that their thoughts are, their intention is to murder this person. Never going to know that for sure, but you know that their intent is to do that. That's how people get charged.
But then, for example, they wouldn't be charged with murder. They would be charged with. Sorry, what did you say? You cut out for a second.
You're basing that God, I lost the word. But you're basing the idea that you're basing assumption of intent on their actual actions.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of where woke.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you obviously need the motive as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then we get down to how we charge people. I think.
Yeah.
There we go. We worked it out, guys.
And I think that's why they made the laws, that you need all that stuff, and then they can get charged.
And then you can get a conviction.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Next
Any other
question
questions?
So
from Greavesy is I don't know much about this, but he said someone wrote "RIP" like R.I.P. on an Ivan Milat died post on Facebook, and then the guy got roasted to the point that 9 News deleted their comment. Do you think that was morally? Do you think that was morally correct? Of his post. So was it morally correct for them to delete his post that says R.I.P.? Who is Ivan Milat? I didn't see that.
Ivan Milat was the guy. Was he the guy up who like murdered all those backpackers?
Yeah.
In Australia?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like they were like hitchhikers or whatever, and he would come up and like murder them.
Right. Okay. So someone said "RIP" on his post.
Sure.
He was probably like
Feel free to correct me in chat if I'm wrong.
the most evil person.
Yeah,
backpacker murderer.
Backpacker murder. Yep, cool.
Yeah.
So someone on Facebook on an Ivan Milat news post about how he died in prison. He died in prison today or yesterday.
Must have, yeah.
Yep. And then someone commented R.I.P., which means rest in peace.
Yeah.
And the question is it morally wrong of him to have posted it? Or is it morally wrong of Channel 9 to have deleted it?
To have deleted it. I guess both. We could argue both.
Is it morally or ethically wrong for them to have deleted it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a huge can of worms.
I mean,
well, R.I.P. on the internet has different context.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's so much different context to that. He could have been using it in the sense of like
thank God this person's.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like
and it can be
like
used in that context.
And like, to be honest, even if he had to put it on there in terms of like, well, rest in peace, like you just say that over the dead, right? Like it doesn't matter if they're a terrible person, you know? Terrible people still get gravestones with like there's someone in the world would have loved that guy, you know, like I'm sure somewhere like he has a mum, you know, he has to have a mum and a dad, you know, like I don't know, I think that like he's dead and like I don't know, like should he have gotten heaps of hate about it? I don't think so.
I don't think so. It should have just been ignored. There's a lot stupider things that I see on the internet.
Oh my god, yes. Yeah.
That's I think the thing is it should have just been and it got blown up. And that's what makes it worse.
And that's what makes Channel 9 have to take a stance on it, is not necessarily what he said, but everybody's comments, but everybody's comments on what he said and why they deleted it.
And because people see it in that context, because they find it as an opportunity to get on their high horse on the subject. This is what I was talking about.
Now we're coming down to the dilemma of social media and like how toxic it is. Like let's talk about that another time. But
that's a whole other can of worms too.
So many.
Do you have any other chat questions?
Yeah.
That's all. We're done. We can wrap up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously, like this is like a crazy topic that like has so many nuances and like you can like obviously there's entire degrees that revolve around this topic, you know what I mean? So I never thought that we were going to get to the bottom of everything and anything.
Yeah, we went through like 3 dot points.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the degree. Oh man, I thought he was faking this whole time.
WMU classic. So like I definitely think that, but I think that what we can I definitely have come to the terms of like everything is, once again, I say this a lot, but everything is nuanced. Everything you need to take into account, like circumstances surrounding the situation and that what people are in and what influences that they've had on them, and like really get information on what's going on before you can like decide if something's morally accurate or morally not. I don't know. And different situations, morals apply in different ways and all this kind of stuff. And I don't think there's one way where you can say with 100% certainty that this is going to be applied the exact same way every single time, no matter what.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I disagree. I don't know how you frame that.
Well, they obviously make laws and stuff, so that has to be applied in an individual way. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know, but I'm not talking about laws. I'm talking about like rules. I don't think that there's one way that you can say. I know. I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
Like I feel like no one at any point during this podcast has said that there is a moral, like some sort of moral or ethic that will 100%, no matter what, be applied in the exact same way, no matter the situation or circumstances.
No, that's right. Because it's always situational.
Every situation you got to look at the what's going on.
Yeah, right.
Information is power.
So, sorry, I thought I wasn't saying something like that no one would agree with there, and then Fresh was like,
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know what you were saying for a little bit, but I get it. Yeah, I get it.
So I just want to throw out there, if you guys like this kind of, I highly recommend Place, the TV show.
Oh no, sorry, you cut out a little bit. You highly recommend what?
Happy Place.
The Good.
The Good Place. Yeah, right.
That is what this show is.
Okay.
I'm sorry, other way. This is what that show is.
Yeah.
Is like this kind of discussion, except in story mode. So if you like it, check that out.
What's it on? Which platform? Netflix?
It's on Hulu.
Hulu. Okay.
Well, new episodes come out on Hulu as it comes out on TV, I believe.
Okay.
But the first 3 seasons are on Netflix currently.
Yeah.
For US at least.
All right, cool.
But they are on like the major streaming services. Look around your area.
Definitely. Awesome. And I think that's about all we have time for today, ladies and gentlemen.
So do you want to shout yourselves out, guys? Maybe you start with Slow. Where can we find you?
Doesn't want to do it.
Nah, it's all good.
All good.
It's all good.
Check him out.
Twitch.tv/Slodeo. You can check him out, everyone.
100%.
And his Twitter is Slodeo36 or something. What is it? Slodeo.
Oh, mate.
I don't remember.
26.
26?
If you like what you've heard, wait, where are you? If you like what you've heard here, follow him on Twitter. You get more of it.
Nah, not really.
Misterevets, where can we find you?
Who am I? Where I'm from? Oh, no, sorry. I don't stream or anything. I'm just here like once a month, probably. I
Yeah.
think, about.
Wait, are you on?
Just
Are you on
depends
Twitter?
on the topic.
I feel like we covered this so much.
He's
but,
on
like,
Twitter.
I
yeah.
am on Twitter, but I
You're on
don't do anything with Twitter because I
Oh,
need
man.
it for
Look, mate,
streaming.
you should be
No, you should-
famous. Get famous.
You should
Hurry
come
up.
and like and morally judge everything that I say and do.
Yes.
Challenge me on everything that I say and do.
You
to
can
make
be
me
our,
look good.
our
Can I
guide.
be a mod in your stream? But
Yes.
like, I moderate you.
Moderate us.
Oh, look,
Ethically.
I heard you said this. Maybe you could reconsider. Please
Like it.
reconsider.
I like it. Please
Yeah,
do.
Sorry,
can-
the
you can,
streamer's
like-
been muted.
Yeah, you can have the mute button here when I start getting on a rant. You're like, oh, jeez, no, we don't want that.
When he changes his mind about genocide.
Snip,
Free
snap,
will.
snip, snap.
Free will.
I like it, I don't. Yeah, anyway, cool.
Where can we
Twitter,
find you,
maybe?
Woke?
Yep, obviously Twitch, Mr. Woke TV, Twitter, Mr. Woke TV, Instagram, Mr. Woke TV, and yeah.
Yeah, and
And,
you can find this podcast on pretty much every podcast platform. You just gotta
Every
look for the
platform.
Freshly Awoken podcast, and
Definitely
come up.
check it out.
um, yeah, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks for the next podcast. Catch you later.
Boom, boom, baby.